We are not giving up on the forgotten American teacher getting basically no attention, stuck in a Russian jail cell for almost 8 months now. But the headlines today were once again about Brittany Griner. To the surprise of absolutely no one, the American basketball star was convicted of bringing illegal drugs into Moscow and promptly sentenced to 9 years in a penal colony, which is a place prisoners are sent to live and work. All indications are that negotiations for a prisoner swap involving Griner are likely happening behind the scenes right now. But what about the forgotten American, Sarah Krivanek? We first brought you her story last night. Sarah was arrested last fall after she nicked her boyfriend's nose with a knife while defending herself. These photos, exclusively obtained by NewsNation, they show the injuries Sarah's friends say she suffered by her abusive Russian boyfriend. She was granted bail, but arrested a month later when she tried to board a plane to Moscow airport at the urging of the U.S. Embassy. Yes, the U.S. Embassy bought her plane ticket and escorted her to the airport, where she was then arrested by Russian police. And tonight we're learning new disturbing details about the case that no one seems to be talking about. The last person to talk to Sarah before her arrest was her friend, Anita Martinez. We will talk to her shortly. But first, I want to go to our panel tonight. Laura Ballma, international business consultant, former CIA operations officer. Bruce Marks is an attorney and an expert on legal matters regarding the former Soviet Union. And Hal Kempfer is a retired Marine Corps intelligence officer and currently the CEO of Global Risk Intelligence and Planning. Bruce, I want to start with you. What is the deal with this U.S. Embassy? It almost feels like Sarah was set up. She was out on bond. She was told not to leave the country, yet the U.S. Embassy told her to go to the airport. They escorted her there. There was a diplomat with her. They bought her plane ticket. They gave her spending money. They sent her into the airport, and then she gets arrested by police. I mean, what do you make of that?
It seems to me there's just unbelievable incompetence. Listen, I lived in Moscow during the Soviet period. I've had a law office in Moscow since 1998. When foreign citizens are arrested and they're allowed, not to be put in prison, it's just automatic that there's an order that they're not allowed to leave the country. It's inconceivable that the people at the U.S. Embassy would not have been aware of it, and yet you say set up. I don't know if they did it intentionally, but it's just gross incompetence to assist her in attempting to leave the country. Because the one thing the Russians do is that they communicate these orders, whether it's an order for child support or if you haven't paid a judgment or if you're not allowed to leave the country because of a criminal proceedings. Of course, the people in the airport, the border people, who check your passports when you're going through passport control, bing, it just lights up in the computer, and it's not surprising then that she was arrested. So the shame of this is, I've seen the photos that you put on the site. It's amazing the work that you're doing to make it pretty clear that she was wrongfully charged. But here she is. She actually really broke the law by attempting to leave the country, and it's made even worse by that apparently the U.S. government, was involved in this.
Yeah, it just breaks my heart because her friends have told us, Bruce, that she was going back and forth to the U.S. Embassy. She was sneaking away from the abusive boyfriend to go meet with the diplomats to figure out what to do. The embassy comes up with this plan. They get her the ticket. And then, again, you're right. She wasn't intentionally set up by the government, but gosh, they really screwed her over. And I was thinking today about this same embassy. We were just doing the story a few weeks ago. Remember that Brittany Griner's wife was calling over and over again, and there was no one working at the embassy on the weekend, so they couldn't patch her calls through. Bruce, it seems like this embassy is a bit of a mess.
Listen, it was a mess when I was there during the Soviet days. And, it seems some of these embassy people, and I hate to be critical of government employees, but they're there. This is maybe an exciting place for them to be in Moscow, whatever, but they're not servicing the American people. And this is really bad because you simply can't be in an embassy in Moscow and not know that if you have an American citizen who's been, allowed, not to be in prison pending a criminal case, you just can't not know that they're not allowed to leave the country. And it's just like here in the United States. If you go through, the passport control in or out of the country, they're going to be aware if you're not allowed to leave.
And
So
Laura, I want to bring
terrible.
you in, Laura. If anyone knows how brutal the Russians can be and unfair, it's you. When you were working and stationed over there, tell us about what happened to you.
To be clear, I was never stationed there full time.
Okay.
But one time traveling there, when I still worked for the FBI, but I was there on personal business, I was poisoned. And the Russians are very good at that. They know whether to poison you just enough to make you sick enough that you never want to go back.
Oh my
or,
gosh.
as we've seen in the horrible situations, they've killed their opponents. But I take issue with the idea that the American embassy is somehow at fault with what happened to Ms. Krivanek, which is horrible. The abuse she suffered apparently is terrible. I blame Russia and a judicial system which it works at the whim of a dictator. That's part of the challenge in any American citizen services situation you have there or in another dictatorship is, on one hand, the American government is obliged to help repatriate Americans under certain circumstances. Do you leave someone there who is probably going to be unfairly sent to prison? Do you help them leave? Yes, she was skipping bail, and that is a crime in any country. However, this is not the embassy's fault. This is Vladimir Putin's messed up judicial system.
Yeah, I hear you. At the end of the day, it's obviously Russia, but I'm kind of hung up on you saying that you were poisoned. What happened?
It was not fun. The details would take an entire episode, but essentially my last night in St. Petersburg, I woke up not feeling well. Long story short, I got sick on a Russian airplane. The crew came out in hazmat, clearly prepared for this. It was bad. And that follows a pattern of what has happened to Americans, often who are in some sort of government role, whether posted there or simply visiting.
It's awful. Hal, I want to bring you in. What do you make of the sentence with Brittany Griner today? 9.5 years. Is this sort of setting the stage for a prisoner swap?
Brian, I think this is very predictable. This is exactly what the Russians indicated back in mid-May. They said they wanted to do a courtroom investigation or a court investigation, which basically means, look, a 99% conviction rate. There's not really any court other than what's already been decided. They wanted to take it through. They wanted to get her convicted, and they wanted a substantial sentence. I find what's interesting is her sentence, when you compare it to Victor Bout's remaining years on his sentence, there seems to be kind of a rough parity on that. And I think that may have been in the back of their minds. They want to be stern, but they want to say, look, she's a convicted drug trafficker or drug, basically she's a convicted criminal. And they want to make it look like complete parity. My concern is that even this won't be enough. They're still going to ask for somebody else so they have a 2-for-2 trade and not a 1-for-2 trade. I think that's very predictable. But I think they want a long sentence. And it's simply the optics is what it is.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And I just hope that some of these cases that don't have the media attention of Brittany Griner, like Sarah's case, who we've been talking about, will also maybe get a resolution. Laura Ballma, Bruce Marks, and Hal Kempfer, thank you so much for coming on tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.